You know, before Mario Cristobal had Nick Saban as a mentor, he had Butch Davis. And you see Mario out there recruiting at Miami like Butch did.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And there's also a story, I think this is true, I guess it could be an urban legend, but I'm pretty sure that when Mario was working for Butch, he would even say, like, someday I'm going to be in that chair that you're in, and I'm going to be head coaching here at my alma mater, and it has come full circle. I am Alex Donno. On this episode of Locked On Canes, Malachi Tony has earned a distinction as a top 10 non-quarterback playmaker in the country. There could be some other Canes on this list if we're being real here. But let's talk some recruiting. And I know our guest today, who is the host of the awesome postcasts here on the Locked On Podcast Network, and we'll be in full swing again once football season starts up. You always hear Grease, a.k.a. Jim Greasehaber, on the postcast here on the Locked On Canes Network. And, you know, Grease, I know you've taken notice, of course, who hasn't, on what Mario's been doing on the recruiting trail for the past month or so, just flipping Jaden Bryant earlier this week. It's got to remind you of Butch Davis, and you were very much around the U during the Butch era.
Oh, man, I produced Butch's show. It was my first job out of college. What a guy, what a personality. And I would definitely put Pete Garcia in there too, Alex. You can't leave him out because he was huge and all that with Butch. And, I mean, a lot of things happened with him over the years, but we can never underestimate or disregard his contributions. But Butch Davis was the guy making it all happen. And when I think back on Butch's era, I remember I was a senior his first year. I was a senior at the U when Butch came in, and Ray Lewis was still there, and we lost the opener at UCLA, and Jonathan Ogden and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the running back who later played for the Dolphins, killed us in that game, right? And I remember thinking, oh, man, we're sliding, we're going down, we're this and that. But the thing about Butch that I'll always remember, this guy, more than any other coach in the history of our program, I think he might have been the best in some ways. Jimmy Johnson talks about this. And Butch came up under Jimmy with Dave Wannstedt and that great staff in the 80s. And that was legendary and incredible. And Butch, the D-line coach. And let's not forget the guys he coached as a D-line coach, you know, with Jerome Brown and Danny Stubbs, the record-setting Danny Stubbs and Russell Maryland and all those guys that Butch coached and helped recruit at Miami. So Butch has always been and was always a superstar recruiter. And the timing when Butch Davis came to Miami, as you know, he was recruiting with really two hands tied behind his back. Come to Miami right after Sports Illustrated said we should kill the program. Come to Miami right as the president is your enemy and trying to devalue the football team, which is the only thing anybody cared about with regard to the university at that point, at least nationally. And Butch came into that firestorm. Dennis Erickson had left such a mess here. And I love Coach E. Don't get me started on that, but you can be loved and still leave a mess. And Dennis did leave a huge mess, right? Tony Russell, all that stuff there. I got it out of my system. But what Butch was able to do, we talked about it last week, bringing in Santana Moss on a track scholarship, right? The way that he was able to figure out ways to bring in the Reggie Waynes, the Santana Mosses, the Edgerrin James, who didn't really win much at Miami. He's one of the biggest legends we have, but unfortunately for him, he wasn't here when we were really winning, and he wasn't around by the time it really flipped under Butch. And for that matter, Butch wasn't around to enjoy the fruits of his labor. And when I think about the Butch Davis era, and the guys that I remember all those years, Mario Cristobal was there. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mario did a 4-year run with Butch, like 98 to 2000, 3-year run.
Yeah, I believe so.
Butch left and Mario left, but that was the period in time when everything really started to turn and all the huge stars were coming in and all the huge NFL future legends were coming in. I mean, who could forget when Butch brought in those guys like Ed Reed and Clinton Portis, and I could go on forever and ever, right? Well, Mario was right there in the middle of all that. Mario had a front row seat to all that, and he was a GA at that time who had aspirations, as you said, to be the head coach here in the future. So who better than Mario Cristobal to lead the resurgence of this program, having had literally a front row seat to watch Butch and Pete do it at a time when it was way harder than it is to do it now. And the last thing I want to say about Butch Davis is Can you imagine? I can't imagine anybody doing better than Mario. Shout out Mario Cristobal. Literally, this is amazing what he's doing. The entire recruiting staff flipping guys right after Lane Kiffin shoots his mouth off. You steal a 5-star from him. Suck on that one, Lane. I love it. And I know it's a marathon, not a sprint, but the timing couldn't be better. But can you imagine Butch Davis with the portal and NIL? Can you just imagine Butch Davis and Pete Garcia with the portal and NIL? It's hard to imagine anybody beating what Mario's doing right now. But also to go and learn from Nick Saban and to do it outside of Miami at what has undoubtedly been, and I hate to say this, believe me, it pains me to say it. Should I have an accent like this when I do? I don't know. But the Alabama years with Nick Saban, man, it's second to none. You can't really.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Anything about Saban's Alabama Crimson Tide teams and that program that he built in the last era before the NIL and the portal to do what he did was absolutely incredible, right? And the whole SEC rose because of it. So Mario not only learned from Butch, who I think is one of the greatest recruiters and architects of a program who ever lived, then he goes and learns from the best to ever do it. And now he's doing it. So while I've criticized his in-game coaching, which, by the way, Nick Saban did too a couple of times after those games live on ESPN last year. Do it a lot easier than I can. But I'll say this, for Mario to take all that knowledge from over the years, and so many other, Art Keogh, a big part of Mario Cristobal as well. Shout out to Art.
Yeah.
But when I think about what Mario has done, and he's taken from all these guys, as we're all supposed to do along the way, you and I along the way work with legends who helped us, Jim Mandich, Jeff DeForest, in my case, legends in Miami who helped me as a young guy. And when I think about what Mario's done, you can see and you can hear and you can feel Butch Davis all over this. You can see and you can hear and you can feel the guy who brought Mario to Miami in the first place, Jimmy Johnson, all over this. And you can see and you can hear and you can feel Nick Saban all over this. Now, the thing about Mario is he's stubborn and he's going to stand there with his arms crossed and it's going to be tough love. But he knows what those guys have meant to him. He's put his own stamp on it. And I think if he can continue to evolve as an on-field coach with the recruiting, with the NIL, with the portal, no matter how many rules they try to put in to stop us, Mario could end up being in that category eventually with guys like Jimmy, with guys like Butch. I don't consider it to be Coker. I consider it to be Butch. Sorry, Larry.
Yeah,
guy.
same.
But Howard, what does Mario need to do to reach Jimmy, Howard, and even Dennis Erickson territory?
One main difference between Mario and all those guys, Butch included, is this is not a stepping stone job for him, Grease, which I think it's very
Oregon to come here. That's a better job in most people's eyes at the time, right. Definitely.
He left Oregon to come here. Obviously, he is compensated in a way that Butch wasn't. So, maybe Butch wouldn't have left Miami for Cleveland if Miami had the wherewithal to pay him what he was worth at that time. But that's not going to be an issue with Mario. Joe Echeverria will always make sure Mario is taken care of. This is not a stepping stone for him. So, the Hurricanes have an opportunity for Mario Cristobal, who's in his 50s, to be here for maybe multiple decades, possibly, to do kind of what he can for his alma mater, to kind of be, maybe not for quite as long, but what Bobby Bowden did at Florida State, for Mario to have that sort of long-lasting effect here. That's one thing. And then another thing that's worth pointing out, Grease, I think people take this for granted because obviously Miami is very competitive when it comes to an NIL standpoint, right? They're not pinching pennies on the recruiting trail. Now, people sometimes like to act like Miami's the only team that's spending money, which is ridiculous. Miami is not the top spenders, but they are competitive with a lot of the top programs in the country. And it's extra impressive when you consider Miami's enrollment size, Miami's alumni base. I want to give credit to Matt Shodell at Kane Sport because he wrote about this week. If you look at the top 25 recruiting programs right now, the programs that have top 25 classes, the only private schools in that mix in the top 25 are, I guess you could say the usual suspects, Miami, Notre Dame, and USC. Most of the other ones are mega state schools with gigantic enrollments, gigantic alumni bases, and state funds.
Governor.
Yeah, right. And state funds that they can pull from in their coffers when, now, of course, Miami, Notre Dame, and USC don't have that. But you compare USC and Notre Dame to Miami, the enrollments and the alumni bases for those two are much bigger. Miami is a considerably smaller school than those two. And yet the Hurricanes continue to punch above their weight when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to competitive NIL. Like, unfortunately, I wasn't able to be on this episode this week, but on the weekly Locked On ACC Squad show, I'm usually on it. Sometimes I'm not. I know the guys were talking this week about, the ACC having a debt problem, right? But I mean, I don't feel like Miami's concerned about that. And also being in the ACC, you don't necessarily make as much TV revenue as the SEC schools and Big Ten schools do. But Miami is really well mobilized, Grease. I mean, the alumni support that Miami
playoff too.
Yeah, right.
More
The
money.
alumni support Miami does have, and the U Health hospital system has been very profitable, which helps. Like, Miami is punching above their weight from an NIL and resources standpoint right now.
Oh, and can you imagine being a recruit and you're on the sideline and you just look and you stare and you see Ray Lewis, Michael Irvin, Ed Reed, Edgerrin James, and Andre Johnson standing there together? I'm getting goosebumps right now, and I'm not a recruit.
Yeah.
I want to sign me up right now when I see those guys. And not only is it the kids, because I have teenagers and your kids are younger than mine. My 17-year-old does not give a crap about me or anyone I interview. I do some great things in the UFC world. I interview Dana White. His friends are starstruck.
Awesome.
I take them all to watch the fights. My son, his friends, oh, your dad. He's like, my dad, So the kids aren't as impressed, but when the parents see that, and the parents grew up watching, guys like that play at the U, Andre Johnson and Ray Lewis, and, the grandparents, maybe Michael Irvin at this point. But, when you see and you have that kind of lineage and you come from a family, and a lot of these kids who leave South Florida come from families of Hurricane fans, and they've been getting out of here. And Howard Schnellenberger called it the state of Miami. Well, it's the state of South Florida. Right. Yeah. And it includes the West Coast now. Guys like Devin Hester came from over there. Right. So you think about the West Coast and the East Coast of South Florida alone. And we haven't quite done this yet under Mario. But if Mario can put that whole region on lock and stop Jeremiah Smith from going to Ohio State and stop guys from leaving and going to schools like that, which is not always easy to do because guys want to get away from where they grew up. But what we've created at Miami, and listen to me, what we've created, what Mario Cristobal is creating at Miami right now and recreating, not just creating, but recreating. We talked about Butch. It's very similar. The parallels, great job by you to make this a topic because the parallels are undeniable. But just not letting those elite players get out of South Florida and then adding in your mix of the elites from around the country, the elite players. That was what the formula was for Miami every single time we've been great. Every single time we kept the best local kids home, and then we went out and got the best kids elsewhere. But the one thing about Miami that USC doesn't have, it has Hollywood. It has everything. I don't know how much Hollywood even no one really cares anymore with the way the world is. But
it seems like most movies these days are filmed in like Canada now. I don't know.
Notre Dame, of course, is back and winning, and that's always formidable because of the money and the things that they have going for them. But nothing ever beats this U. I mean, the top-rated games. If you look at the top 10, Miami's got like 3 or 4 of them every year, especially when we're winning, right? And you look at like the Q rating, for lack of a better term. You look at the popularity of the program, the merchandise sales, the TV ratings. Everybody wants a piece of this U. All the games are going to be in prime time this year. Everybody wants a piece of it, Alex, right? And so when that happens and it becomes as hot as that U becomes, the orange and green, great colors, everybody loves it. When we become who we are becoming right now, and where we've been in the past, no one can recruit against our coaches because everybody wants to be a part of that pipeline. Everybody wants to be a part of this U. Everybody wants to be a part and see if they can be the next Warren Sapp, see if they can be the next Ray Lewis, if they can be the next Michael Irvin, even the next Santana Moss or Reggie Wayne. I could keep going forever, right? Or even just to suit up and run out of that tunnel, even though it's not the Orange Bowl anymore. There's so much to that. And I believe what Mario did to get guys like Maui Noah and Ruben Bain Jr., those guys, to me, are the Edgerrin James and the Reggie Waynes and the Santana Mosses of the program because they didn't quite make it all the way to the chip, but they built and rebuilt the foundation to help get us here. And to me, that's what I love the most about Mario. Mario's a bricklayer, man. Mario's not a guy who's going to build a fancy, flashy skyscraper that's going to sink on Collins Avenue 3 feet like that one building. He's the guy who's going to build it right, brick by brick, literally painstakingly build it brick by brick with every staff member he brings in. I saw a great comparison, and I can't remember which site wrote it, but it compared Butch's coaching staff to Mario's, and it was a great read. You think about guys like Shiano and Randy Shannon and Chudzinski and Chuck Pagano, for crying out loud, with Ed Reed and Philip Buchanan and all those guys that went on to 53 wins with the Colts. So comparing the staffs and building the right staff and putting his ego to the side on some level to bring in the right, to stick with guys like Dawson when eggheads like me keep ripping on him. And then, you bring in Heatherman to turn your defense completely over as a head coach is not an easy thing to do. But Mario knows how to lead. He knows how to delegate. He doesn't put up with any crap from coaches, from players, from anyone. He does it from the top down, but he started from the bottom up, and that's unique and it's rare.
When you talk about keeping the state of Miami locked in, first name that comes to mind for these current Canes is Malachi Tony.
Yeah.
Now, not only is Tony, he's on the cover throwing up the U on the new EA Sports college football video game, but he's also earned a distinction here of top 10 non-quarterback playmakers. You want to keep it locked right here. We got the Postcast King with us, and we're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Folks, the NBA Finals are now in full swing. Every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. And, now that the Knicks took game one, New York is now favored to win the series at minus 136. So you can check that out. If you're a Knicks believer or if you want to get that plus money on San Antonio, you want to check this out. And right now, new customers on FanDuel can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. I love using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place on the app. Not only can you make your wagers, but you can track your stats, your trends, and matchups before you make your picks, which makes the whole experience just feel a lot more informed. Whether you're looking at player props or you're just following your favorite stars, it adds another level of excitement to every game. It's a really easy app to navigate, and it makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. So head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. My friends, if you haven't joined the Everydayer Club All Access tier yet, we're giving you as much extra and exclusive info as we possibly can during this busy recruiting season. We're, of course, going to start to ramp up the preview content for the 2026 football season. You want to go to lockedoncanes.supercast.com. And when you become an all-access everydayer, you not only get ad-free versions of our shows, you get exclusive episodes, you get newsletters, one-on-one texting with me, so many other great benefits. Go to lockedoncanes.supercast.com or click the link in the show notes below to join the Everydayer Club today. Alex Donno alongside the Postcast King, Greece. All right, so Greece, ESPN has put out their list, top 10, although they don't actually order the guys. So I guess it's in no particular order, but non-quarterback playmakers for the 2026 season. And the first name on their list is the cover star of that college football video game in Malachi Tony, who you point up number one, and he's now wearing the jersey number one. So he's number one in your programs and number one in your hearts now in Malachi Tony. Now, first of all, Grease, I don't think you're going to argue with that, right? That Malachi Tony, he's a top 10 playmaker in the country.
I would say he's probably the number one playmaker in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, just watching his highlight film is unbelievable in film. How old am I? But just watching him, man, and just, I mean, against Florida State and against Ole Miss, on those are balls that are just basic balls right there in the flat, bang, wide receiver screen, bubble screen, whatever it is, quick little slant. Even I remember the Ole Miss game, he stumbles a little bit before he even gets going, and he still outruns everybody. He outruns angles, Alex. When you get a guy who outruns angles, we talked about Santana Moss, we've talked about Devin Hester, Roscoe Parrish, another one of those guys. They outrun angles, man. When the safety has an angle on you and you outrun the safety who has an angle on you, that's incredible. And Malachi Tony is one of those guys. Linebackers have no chance in the open field. Safeties have no chance. Most corners have no chance in the open field. You need to form a wall around him to contain him once he catches the ball. And that is such a thing for a defense to have to worry about. If I'm Cooper Barkade, I'm literally salivating, and Josh Moore, and you think about Mensa, but the things that you can do with a player like that. And we saw him, take snaps as a quarterback last year, and we saw him throw the ball a bunch of times, touchdown passes. So we can't underestimate that when we're talking about the weapon he is. He can run it, he can throw it, he can catch it and take it to the house. Every single time he touches the ball, he's a threat to score. How many guys in the history of the program can we say that about? Michael, Andre, Santana, you know what I mean? It's a very small list, even at a school like Miami. How many guys in the history of the game can we actually say that about, right? Malachi Tony is one of those guys, and I think that he is the most elite playmaker in college football right now. I don't think there's anybody close, to be honest with you. The different ways he can do it, the areas in which he can hurt you. And then you think about using him as a decoy on some plays, and you have guys on the other side of the field going, hey, I could build my own house here by the time they come over and cover me. So I can't wait to see what Dawson does with him this year, but more so than that, because we saw a lot of it last year as a true freshman at 17 years old. And that's the other thing about Tony, to do it at that age and to have the ice water in his veins and not shrink from big moments when most kids his age are still in high school. Think about that, right? But man, I'm gushing here, and I should be gushing, but just imagine how Mensa feels right now. I mean, this guy was electric at Duke. This guy was undeniably great at Duke with those weapons, and his number one weapon from Duke is with him in Miami too, in Barkate. So think about how he's feeling to come here. I know the NIL money was huge. I know that the U is huge and all those things are huge. You can't deny Cam Ward, Carson Beck, the success they had, but how much of a factor must it have been for Darian Mensah to sit there and think, man, when it hit him, I get to throw the ball to that dude.
Sign me up, I'm sure, were his first three words. Sign me up for that. And I love what you said. And so, I mean, for me, the two factors that make Malachi Tony, to me, the top non-quarterback playmaker in the game. I mean, he would be top 10 even if you include quarterbacks, but this is a non-quarterback list. It's the versatility and the unpredictability, right? Because I go back to what Greg McElroy did a segment a couple weeks ago where he compared Malachi Tony to Jeremiah Smith. And I know Ohio State fans were annoyed that he would even say this, but I don't think there's any question. There's no denying it. Like, Jeremiah Smith is the best wide receiver in the country. He's a better receiver than Malachi Tony, but McElroy referred to Tony as the better football player. And it makes sense to me because, like, Tony, just as a conventional wideout, may not be as classically, traditionally good as Jeremiah Smith, who's just a physical freak. But what Tony can do that I don't think anyone else in the country can do at this level is he can hit you in so many different ways when it comes to the bubble screens and the tunnel screens, like you said. Throwing passes. He threw multiple touchdowns last year. Running for touchdowns. He can affect the game in so many different ways. And I appreciate the way Shannon Dawson used him last year, especially towards like the latter portions of the season. Like you never knew what Tony was going to be up to. And like you said, decoy. I know my pal, the truth teller, loves to say that about Malachi Tony. Even when you're not putting the football in his hands, he takes so much attention away from what else is on the field. So the unpredictability and the versatility for me are what sets Tony apart.
The big moment. I mean, look at the playoff run alone. Look at the touchdown against Texas A&M, right? That put us ahead late. Look at the one against Ole Miss late in the game when he's going shh. And look at the one against Indiana. I mean, every single one of those games, it was Malachi Tony finding the end zone to give us a chance to win. Every single one of those games. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about the entrance and the arrival, the announcement of the arrival of number 10, now number 1, as you mentioned, against Notre Dame. Early in the season, it was still August, and here you are. There's Malachi Tony scoring. I know it was C.J. Daniels who got the winning score, but Tony scored earlier in the game. And then the Florida State game, the big plays he made there, he shows up, and that's been a hallmark at the University of Miami. Every single legend lives by this. I mean, the HSBD phrase, we know that one, right? That's a big part of the past, and that's player to player passed down. But the other one is what, Alex? Big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. And I don't think anybody has ever done more of that as a freshman at Miami than Malachi Tony. I think back to Michael Irvin early in his career with Vinny T and the big plays he made, but not as a freshman like Malachi. I mean, just the things that he was able to do, the games, the stages, 100,000 people sitting there watching, is millions upon millions, tens of millions watching on TV. And this kid who started the season at 17 years old by showing up every day at 5 a.m. and being the first one there, which is how he earned his way in. And then, everything else is undeniable. But when you take everything you mentioned about him, and you take everything you just said about him as a playmaker, you don't know where he's going to score from. He can throw it, he can run it, he can catch it, all those things. And then you add in the game-breaking ability that he could score from anywhere, anytime he touches the ball. He's not only could, but he's likely to. And then you throw in the fact that he does it best at the brightest moments. I think he's the best player in college football, second to nobody. Number one, I think he should be the Heisman favorite coming into this season. Ooh. Based on all those things. I mean, you think about the guys who have come before him, right? Desmond Howard, for example. Howard. Malachi Tony not returning kicks might hurt him a little bit when it comes to something like that, but you would never want to risk anything with that. And
he does return punts, though.
Yeah, he does return punts, and so he's an electric punt returner too. But it's interesting to think about when you talk about all those things put together, and you compare him to the other players. Is the Heisman Trophy not supposed to go to the best football player, not the best quarterback, not the best position specialist? The best football player in the country is number one, Malachi Tony.
Yeah, agreed. The other names that made the list outside of Tony, and there are some defensive players they put here as well. John Henry Daly, defensive end at Michigan. Kewan Lacey, who's another guy on the cover with Tony on EA Sports, running back from Ole Miss. Colin Simmons, edge rusher of Texas. Jeremiah Smith, of course, wide receiver from Ohio State. They have a co-name on one of these, Trey White and Adam Trick, who are outside linebackers of Texas Tech. Xavier Atkins, a linebacker at Auburn. Cam Cook, running back from West Virginia. Cam Robinson, linebacker from the Virginia Cavaliers. Tyreek Tucker, a defensive tackle of Indiana. LJ Martin, a running back of BYU. Leonard Moore, cornerback from Notre Dame. Coy Parrish, safety and returner from Oregon. And there's more guys on this list than I thought. And the last
Miami
one,
guys. Where are the Miami guys on that list?
That's what I'm saying. Jamond Tapp, defensive lineman from Memphis. So, look, if we're branching out a lot on that list, I could say I could make an argument for Mark Fletcher, who I can make an argument on defense for Bryce Fitzgerald, who hauled in 6 interceptions last year as a true freshman. There's some defensive ends on that list. I think Damon Wilson, who had almost double-digit sacks in the SEC last year, can do some big things at Miami. Cooper Barkate, you mentioned. I mean, he's up there as well, coming off an 1,100-yard season. I think we could go with a lot more of these Canes guys who could be on that list.
I think number one is Mark Fletcher Jr., man. I think he's poised to have a savage year. Yeah. I think Tony's going to draw a ton of attention early in the season. And again, the schedule this year is, I don't want to say anything. I'm not going to say anything, but I wish it was a little bit stiffer, to be honest with you, as you look for the playoffs and a championship run. I wish there were more games like the Notre Dame game. I wish it would be more like the old days when we would go to Michigan, go to Notre Dame and play those guys. And then you play Florida State and then you play Florida. I would love to see that schedule year in and year out, and just see this team dominate that schedule. But that being said, I think teams early on are going to really focus on Tony. They'd be crazy not to. They're going to try to guess. You can't blitz Mensa. Right? You can't. So what are you going to do? You pick your poison. You take away Malachi Tony. Barkate's going to kill you on the other side. Josh Moore, whoever else steps up, and we haven't even seen yet, right? It happens every year. But the one guy, if you focus too much on Tony, and Dawson knows this because every single time he started feeding the rock to Mark Fletcher Jr., whether it was the Indiana game, whether it was the Ohio State game early, whether it was late, the Texas A&M game, let's not forget the big run he had to set up Tony's touchdown in that game. Mark Fletcher Jr. got better and better as the year went on, and his performances, you made this point when we talked about him on a recent show, he got better and better, and his best performances came in the playoffs, right? Mark Fletcher Jr. He was a savage against Ohio State and Ole Miss and Indiana. So when I think about Mark Fletcher Jr. and you get him his carries and you get Tony his touches and you get Barkate his touches, this offense is going to be unstoppable. So I think Fletcher's going to have another 12 to 1,500 yard season, double-digit touchdowns. I said that he has a chance to end up in New York. We have three guys who could end up in New York between Mensah and Tony and Fletcher, and I'd like to see how all the touches get distributed because they won't have the gaudy numbers individually that some guys will around the country, but that's only because there are two other Heisman-level guys sharing the same huddle, if you think about that. And to me, those three guys are this close. Now, Tony's here, right? I love Mensah and I love Fletcher, and I think that you're going to see a huge year out of Mark Fletcher Jr., who should absolutely be on that list. Absolutely. And I love Fitzgerald, too. I love that call.
Yeah, well, and you guys let us know, anyone you feel we left off who should be on that list of non-quarterback playmakers from Miami. Tony, of course, belongs on that list, but who else? We appreciate the Postcast King, Grease. Make sure you follow him on X at @JimGrease_. He also hosts the Dolphin Squad shows. I had the privilege of filling in for Kyle Krabs with Grease and Jeff Scanina last weekend.
Host Alex Donno, an epic guest hosting performance.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a ton of fun, man. I like talking Dolphins as well, not just the U. We will talk to everyone next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the #1 sports podcast network, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.